In August 2015, a family of three disappeared. Daniel Harrison, 42, Alice Harrison, 39, and their son, Ryan Harrison, 12. They set off on a 2-day hike in the Desolation Wilderness near Lake Tahoe and never returned. 8 years later, in September 2023, their SUV was recovered from the lake. Inside, they found items that completely changed the investigation. On August 2nd, 2015, the Harrison family left their home in the suburbs of Sacramento, California, and headed for Lake Tahoe. There were 3 people in the car: Daniel Harrison, 42, his wife Alice, 39, and their son Ryan, 12. According to neighbors, they left around 7:30 a.m. in a dark blue SUV, having packed their gear for a 2-day hike in advance. The route chosen by the family was standard and well known among tourists. They planned to walk from the entrance near Echo Lakes, climb to Aloha Lake, and spend the night in a tent at one of the permitted campsites. The next day, August 3rd, they were to return by the same route. The family did not have much experience in long expeditions, but this hike was considered safe for trained amateurs. At 9:52 a.m. that morning, Daniel's brother received a short text message from him. "We're on the trail. Everything is fine. See you tomorrow." At 10:15 a.m., Alice wrote to her mother, "The weather is good. We're starting. There's almost no cell service here." These were the last recorded contacts with the family. No calls were received after that. Throughout August 2nd, the situation did not cause concern. The Harrisons planned to spend the night in the mountains, and the lack of communication was considered normal. However, they were supposed to return home on the evening of August 3rd. When this did not happen, relatives initially assumed that the family might have stayed another night. But by the morning of August 4th, it became clear that there was still no communication. The family members' phones were off the grid. At 8:45 a.m. on August 4th, Daniel's brother called the El Dorado County Police Department. The duty officer's report states, "A report has been received of 3 missing persons: Daniel, Alice, and Ryan Harrison. They were last in contact at 10:15 a.m. on August 2nd. Route: Desolation Wilderness. Entrance from Echo Lakes." The police's first actions were standard. A patrol went to the parking lot near Echo Lakes to check if the car was still there. But the Harrisons' SUV was not in the parking lot. This created a serious problem. The absence of the car meant that they could either have left the area on their own or the car was somewhere else. The rescue report states, August 4th, 7 p.m. Group #1 headed towards Echo Lakes. The section to Aloha Lake has been covered. No traces of the family have been found. No foreign objects were found on the route. The weather during those days was typical for August. Daytime temperatures reached +26 degrees C, and nights were cool, around +8 degrees C. No precipitation was recorded. This ruled out the possibility of a sudden storm or bad weather that could have stopped the tourists. By the end of the day on August 4th, it was confirmed that no other campground, no other camping site, and no other route in Desolation Wilderness had recorded the Harrisons' arrival. No entries were found in the rangers' logs either. That same evening, the police informed the family of the official status. The case has been classified as a missing persons case involving 3 individuals. Search parties have been dispatched. A possible route is being established. During the first day of the search, no traces were found. No belongings, no footprints, no signs of a camp. The only confirmation that the family had indeed gone hiking were text messages from August 2nd. These became the starting point for the search, which in the following days took on a scale unprecedented in this region. On the morning of August 5th, 2015, A temporary search and rescue headquarters was set up in South Lake Tahoe. The local community center was turned into a command post. Large topographic maps of the Desolation Wilderness area were hung on the walls. Verified areas were marked in red, and those where new groups were to go were marked in blue. As of the morning, more than 40 people were involved in the search. Local rangers, units from the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office, volunteers from among experienced hikers, and several canine teams. Captain Michael Webb, who had experience organizing similar operations in mountainous areas, was appointed head of the headquarters. The headquarters log states, May 8, 2015. Operation started at 7 o'clock. Search plan drawn up. 3 ground teams, 1 canine team, and 1 helicopter deployed. The ground teams operated according to a square sector search pattern. The territory was divided into sections of 2-3 square kilometers, each of which was to be checked by a separate team. The priority sectors were the trails from Echo Lakes towards Aloha Lake, Clyde Lake, and Gilmore Lake. At 9:15, a California search and rescue helicopter took off. Its crew was tasked with flying over areas with open terrain where a tent or traces of a campfire could be seen. The pilot's report stated, "The Lake of the Woods, Clyde Lake area has been surveyed. No visual signs of human presence were found. Weather conditions, clear skies, light wind." At the same time, dog handlers began their work from Echo Lakes. They used the family's personal belongings, including Ryan's t-shirt and Alice's sweater, to search. The dogs confidently picked up the trail in the direction of the main trail, but after 2 kilometers, it disappeared. The report states, "The trail was lost in an area with heavy tourist traffic. There may be strong scent interference." By 1 p.m., one of the groups had reached the campground near Gilmore Lake. Vacationers there were interviewed, but none of them had seen the Harrison family. The park visitor log also did not contain their names. This confirmed that the family had not registered their hike with the rangers, which made it difficult to track their route. On the evening of August 5th, the operation was expanded. 3 more ground teams were created, and 2 additional helicopters with thermal imaging systems were brought in. Night flights were carried out at an altitude of 400 meters, but no thermal traces of people were detected in the mountains. On August 6th, the headquarters already had more than 80 participants. The search area was officially expanded eastward to the Ropey Lake area and part of the Ralston Valley. Rescuers worked 12 hours a day. All routes were marked on a map, and every step was recorded in a log. The reports repeated similar phrases. No signs of the family's whereabouts have been found. No foreign objects that may belong to the missing persons have been found. This created a feeling of a vicious circle. Resources were increasing, but there were no results. Canine teams continued their attempts to find a trail. One of the reports contains a note. Possible faint scent at the turn onto the side trail to Ropey Lake, but no confirmation of the route. This did not provide any new information, but headquarters marked the sector as promising. Meanwhile, the police began receiving calls from citizens who had seen news reports about the disappearance. Some claimed to have encountered a similar family in Nevada or Sacramento, but all of these reports proved to be unfounded after investigation. At the end of the first week of the search, the headquarters documents stated, "The operation continues. The routes Echo Lakes, Lake Aloha, Gilmore Lake, Clyde Lake have been worked through. No results. It is recommended to continue the work with air support and the involvement of additional volunteers." Thus, as of August 7, 2015, the Harrisons were officially considered missing, and their route remained unknown. The search operation had already reached a scale not seen in the area for years, but it had yielded no evidence of what had happened to the 3 people who had set out on the trail and disappeared without a trace. Lake Tahoe, located on the border between California and Nevada, is one of the largest and deepest alpine lakes in North America. It covers an area of over 490 square kilometers and has a maximum depth of 501 meters. The coastline stretches for almost 116 kilometers, forming numerous bays, inlets, and rocky cliffs. This posed enormous difficulties for searchers. Even the use of modern technology did not guarantee results. The Desolation Wilderness area, which is directly adjacent to the western shore of Lake Tahoe, is a rocky massif with numerous lakes, passes, and gorges. Over 260 kilometers of trails form a branched network in which even an experienced traveler can easily get lost. The altitude here ranges from 2,000 to 3,000 meters above sea level. In August, when the Harrisons set out on their hike, daytime temperatures could reach plus 25, plus 27 degrees C, but the nights remained cold, with sharp drops to plus 7, plus 8 degrees C. The searchers understood that if the family was indeed in trouble, they could be either in the mountains or in the water. The absence of a car in the parking lot near Echo Lakes forced headquarters to consider the possibility that the car could have veered off the road and ended up in the water. That is why, on the 5th day after the start of the operation, the Lake Tahoe Water Patrol was officially involved in the search. The August 7th report states, "A survey of the Lake Tahoe shoreline has begun using boats equipped with side-scan sonar. Search area: 5 kilometers from the shore in the Emerald Bay and Cascade Lake areas, as well as the northern sectors." The results were unexpectedly poor. The devices used had low resolution. At depths of more than 100 meters, the signal was significantly distorted, and the relief of the bottom made it difficult to detect large objects. The bottom of Lake Tahoe is characterized by sharp elevation changes, numerous underwater ledges, and canyons. According to experts, in such conditions, even a car can go unnoticed if it lies in a depression or is covered with a layer of silt. One of the technical reports contained a telling note. The sonar gave a signal that could correspond to a large metal object, but a recheck showed a natural formation, a stone ledge. The search is complicated by reflections from the rocky bottom relief. The survey lasted several days. About 20 square kilometers of water area were checked, but no confirmed objects that could belong to the Harrison family were found. The final report for August 10th states, "No signs of a car or other large object that could be related to the missing persons have been found. It is recommended to postpone further water searches due to the low efficiency of the equipment." Meanwhile, ground teams continued to work in the mountains. They checked the trails leading from Echo Lakes to the deeper areas of Desolation Wilderness. The reports indicate that campsites near Gilmore, Clyde, Heather, and Ropey Lakes were surveyed. In all cases, the result was the same. The family was not seen, and no traces were found. Particular attention was paid to the area near Aloha Lake, where the Harrisons were supposed to go according to their plan. This area is a large rocky plain with numerous ponds, where tourists usually set up tents. However, no traces were found there either. One of the rangers noted in his report, "The area is open. If there was a tent here or belongings left behind, we would have found them. There are no signs of the family's presence." With each passing day of fruitless searching, headquarters came to the conclusion that this was not a typical mountain incident. The lack of any physical evidence seemed puzzling. Searchers were used to finding at least small items, food wrappers, pieces of equipment, shoe prints, but this time the area remained clean. On the evening of August 11th, Captain Webb signed another report. During the week, the main routes of Desolation Wilderness and part of Lake Tahoe were surveyed. No traces of the Harrison family were found. Continue the operation. it is recommended to consider other versions of the disappearance. This document was the first official confirmation that the search had reached a dead end. Despite significant resources, helicopters, boats, dogs, and dozens of people, in 10 days, no evidence was found that could indicate what had happened to the 3 people who had gone hiking and disappeared without a trace. Almost 2 weeks had passed since the search began. By mid-August 2015, the area around Desolation Wilderness and the western part of Lake Tahoe had been combed through. The daily reports were similar. No traces of the Harrison family have been found. The headquarters had already begun to discuss the option of gradually winding down the operation. However, it was during this period that a discovery was made that changed the tone of the investigation. On August 14, 2015, at around 4:30 p.m., one of the volunteers, a fisherman named Thomas Reynolds, who was helping to patrol the coastal areas, reported a discovery. He was surveying a small bay in the southwest of the lake, about 3 kilometers from the searchers' main route. The area was difficult to access: steep rocky shores, dense shrubs, and no established trail. According to Reynolds, he went down there by accident to check out a spot for fishing. On a narrow strip of sandy shore among the branches and seaweed, he saw a red children's baseball cap. It was partially wet, slightly covered with silt and sand. On the inside, there was still a patch with the letter R. Reynolds immediately realized that the item could be significant and called the Ranger Patrol. That evening, the baseball cap was officially recorded as evidence. The report states, August 14, 2015, southwestern shore of Lake Tahoe. A child's headgear, baseball cap, was found. The item was seized for identification. No signs of violent damage were found. The next morning, the Harrisons were invited to headquarters to examine the find. Daniel's parents confirmed that the baseball cap belonged to Ryan. According to them, the boy had received it as a birthday present a few months earlier and wore it all the time. This fact was recorded in the case file. The discovery of the item immediately intensified the work of the search teams. The area around the bay was divided into several squares, and a systematic search began. Divers were brought in to search the shallows. Metal detectors and additional dogs were used. Within 48 hours, the area within a kilometer of the find was thoroughly searched. Every detail was recorded in the reports: pieces of wood, plastic bottles, scraps of fabric. However, none of these items were related to the Harrison family. The final report for August 16th states, apart from the baseball cap, no material evidence was found in the sector. There are no traces of a camp, a fire, or other personal belongings. For investigators, the baseball cap was a double signal. On the one hand, it confirmed that the family had indeed been at the lake. On the other hand, the absence of any other items made the picture even more mysterious. If the item was washed away from the shore, why didn't anything else wash up? If the baseball cap fell out accidentally, why are there no traces nearby? There was even a theory that the baseball cap could have been left there deliberately as a false clue. However, no evidence was found to support this. An examination showed that the fabric was worn naturally, with no external damage. At that point, the baseball cap was the only material evidence in the case. All other efforts were unsuccessful. The headquarters report, dated August 17th, concluded, the find confirms the family's presence in the Tahoe area. No additional evidence has been found. The search will continue. This was a painful moment for the relatives. For the first time, they had real confirmation that the Harrisons had been at the lake, but they still had no answer to the main question: what happened next? The search operation entered a phase where even a small object, the only piece of evidence, became the main focus for investigators. Ryan's baseball cap was recorded, photographed, and stored in the archive under the code Evidence 1508RH. Thus ended the second week of the search. All hopes were now pinned on further combing of the area or a chance witness providing the next clue. But that did not happen. The second week of the search ended without any new results. The only evidence remained Ryan's baseball cap, found on the shore of Lake Tahoe. The operation continued, but investigators began to voice assumptions that went beyond the usual scenario of a disappearance in the mountains. The El Dorado County Sheriff's report for August 18th states, "Given the lack of evidence, alternative versions should be considered. Voluntary departure from the place of residence, internal family conflicts, as well as an accident involving a car." The first version is voluntary escape. Some detectives suggested that the family could have deliberately disappeared to start a new life. This theory emerged after reviewing Daniel's financial records. In July 2015, he took out a loan to renovate his home. Several payments were overdue. The case file contains a note. Financial difficulties could have been a motive for the escape. However, no evidence was found to support this version. Bank accounts remained inactive after August 2nd. The cards were not used, and no new loans or transfers were recorded. The second version is family problems. During questioning, neighbors mentioned that the couple sometimes had arguments. One Sacramento newspaper published an article titled, "Disappearance or Escape? Police are investigating conflicts in the Harrison family." However, relatives denied this information. The protocol records the words of Alice's mother. They lived normally. There were no conflicts that would have caused them to flee. Investigators found no evidence of internal problems that could have led to voluntary disappearance. The third version was an accident. It seemed the most logical. The absence of the car in the parking lot led to the assumption that the car could have fallen into the lake or crashed off the mountain road. To verify this scenario, boats with sonar were brought in. However, the results of the water search were negative. The final report states, "As of August 15th, 2015, no traces of the car have been found. The version of the car falling into the water has not been confirmed." At the same time, rumors began to spread in the media. One of the Reno TV channels reported that the family had been seen at a gas station in Nevada after the announcement of their disappearance. Surveillance camera footage did indeed capture a man, woman, and child resembling the Harrisons. However, after a detailed analysis, the police determined that it was another family of tourists from Utah. Similar reports came in regularly. People called headquarters claiming to have seen a similar woman at a supermarket in Carson City, or a similar boy at a bus station in Reno. All of these reports were investigated, but none were confirmed. Some of the press tried to link the disappearance to local legends. In August, newspapers ran headlines such as, "The Mystery of Tahoe, Another Disappearance Without a Trace." Journalists recalled old stories about people who had disappeared near the lake. This created an atmosphere of sensation, but did not add any specifics to the investigation. Official documents remained dry. The report for August 20th stated, "Versions checked. Voluntary disappearance, family conflicts, accident. No evidence has been found to support any version. The search continues." Thus, by the end of the second week of the operation, investigators had only a few inconclusive hypotheses and a single piece of material evidence: Ryan's baseball cap. Everything else looked like a vicious circle of rumors, assumptions, and refuted evidence. In September 2015, after more than a month of unsuccessful searches, the operation was gradually wound down. The official report from the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office concluded with the statement, "No traces of the Harrison family's whereabouts have been found. It is recommended that active search efforts be suspended." Case status: unsolved disappearance. At the end of the year, the case was officially reclassified as a cold case. All materials, flight logs, dog handler reports, search area maps, were transferred to the archives. Cards labeled Harrison Family Missing, August 2015, ended up among hundreds of other unsolved cases. This decision came as a blow to the family. Daniel and Alice's parents repeatedly appealed to local and federal authorities to resume the search. In February 2016, they gave an interview to KCRA television, where they stated, "We have not received any answers. There is only silence. We cannot come to terms with it until we find out what happened." From time to time, the family appeared on television and organized memorial events at Echo Lakes. Articles appeared in newspapers in Sacramento and Reno with headlines such as "A Year Without the Harrisons" and "Disappearance on Tahoe, Still No Clues." But media interest quickly faded. In 2017, the family hired a private detective agency from Reno. 2 former police officers worked in the lake area for several weeks, re-interviewing witnesses and trying to track down possible bank or telephone activity. Their report ended succinctly. No new evidence has been obtained. The probable location of the missing persons could not be established. Another attempt was made in 2019, when volunteer divers from a local club surveyed part of the Tahoe lake bed at their own expense. They dived near Emerald Bay and several smaller bays. They publicly stated, "We hoped to help the family find answers, but we found nothing." Despite the lack of official results, the case lived on among local residents in the form of legends. In the towns around Lake Tahoe, people talked about the Harrison curse. Some claimed that the family had been kidnapped by an unknown recluse living in the mountains. Others said they had fallen victim to criminals. Some even linked the disappearance to ancient stories of mysterious disappearances near the lake. In the bars of South Lake Tahoe, you could hear phrases like, "It's better not to pitch a tent where they found the baseball cap. People disappear there." Such rumors kept interest alive, but they had no evidentiary value for the police. Official documents between 2016 and 2022 contained only brief notes. No new evidence. Case remains open. Every spring, the sheriff's office conducted a formal review of the case files and came to the same conclusion each time. The relatives could not come to terms with the uncertainty. They created a small website dedicated to the disappearance, where they posted photos of Daniel, Alice, and Ryan, as well as contact information for reports. The site featured a counter showing the number of days that had passed since their disappearance. In 2020, it exceeded 1,800. Years passed. The Harrisons' case became another unsolved mystery of Tahoe. For the police, it was an archival case with minimal chances of being solved. For relatives, it was a constant wound that would not heal. For local residents, it was part of folklore, a reminder that in these mountains and on this lake, people can disappear without a trace. 8 years had passed since the Harrisons disappeared. The case remained a cold case, stored in the archives of the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office. No new evidence or testimony had been received. In September 2023, the situation changed unexpectedly. On September 10th, divers from a private organization conducting a scientific project survey of the lake bottom recorded the silhouette of a large object at a depth of about 65 meters. The coordinates were forwarded to the local sheriff's office. The report states, "A metal structure, possibly a car, has been discovered. The location is the southwestern sector of Lake Tahoe, an area with a sharp drop in depth." On September 11th, specialists from the Water Safety Department arrived at the site. Divers confirmed that a dark-colored SUV was lying at the bottom. The windows were broken, and the body was covered with silt and algae. There was extensive damage to the body from rocks. The silhouette of the vehicle was partially hidden in an underwater depression, which explained why the object had gone unnoticed in 2015. In a comment to the press, Water Safety Captain Richard Blake explained, "In 2015, we were working with different technology. Modern sonar provides a clear 3D image of the bottom. At that time, our devices only recorded general contours. In areas with sharp changes in depth, the car could easily be mistaken for a rock ledge. After confirmation, the decision was made to raise the car. To do this, a crane on a barge and air cushions were used to stabilize the hull. The operation took several hours. Divers secured cables to the subframe, and slowly, meter by meter, the SUV was lifted to the surface. At 2:40 p.m., the car reached the surface. It was severely damaged by corrosion. The tires were destroyed by time, and the license plates were unreadable. The car was taken to a special site near the coastline for further inspection. The first report contained a key entry. The recovered vehicle has been identified as an SUV registered to Daniel Harrison. Personal belongings are present inside. An examination is required." On the evening of September 11th, the county sheriff held a brief briefing. "We can confirm that the car belonging to the family that disappeared in 2015 has been found. This discovery moves the case from cold case status to active investigation. Items found inside are currently being examined by forensic experts." Local media called the event the biggest breakthrough in the Harrison case. Newspapers ran headlines such as "Lake Returns Mystery" and "Missing SUV Raised After 8 Years of Silence." For the relatives, it was both a relief and a shock. For the first time since the disappearance, real evidence had emerged. Thus, modern technology and a chance survey of the bottom in 2023 allowed us to see what remained invisible in 2015. The Harrison's SUV became the main piece of material evidence capable of answering questions that had remained unanswered for 8 years. After the Harrison's SUV was raised, it was transported to a fenced-off area near South Lake Tahoe, where a temporary forensic laboratory had been set up. Only a limited number of investigators and technical experts were allowed access to the vehicle. The examination was videotaped, and every action was recorded in the protocol. On the first day, the main task was to record the external condition of the vehicle. The body had numerous damages, but their nature did not indicate a high-speed collision. The front end remained relatively undamaged, while the windows were broken unevenly. The report states, "The driver's and passenger's windows are broken from the inside out. The damage was probably caused after the car hit the water." The most important stage was the inspection of the interior. After opening the doors, the experts noted several items that immediately raised questions. 2 rolled-up pieces of rope were found on the back seat. One of them was tied in a loop. The experts' report states, "The length of the rope is approximately 2.5 meters. The material is synthetic rope, diameter 8 mm. The loop is tied deliberately. The knot is tight." A metal flashlight with traces of rust was found on the floor in front of the front passenger seat. It was turned off, but the batteries inside were intact. Next to it was a plastic bag with several personal items. Among them were Daniel's wallet with bank cards, a small notebook, and Ryan's backpack with notebooks. Importantly, no sleeping bags or most of the camping equipment were found in the car. This contradicted the family's plan for a 2-day trip. The expert's conclusion states, "The equipment is incomplete. The presence of ropes in the car does not correspond to the standard set for family camping." Special attention was paid to the door locks. Investigators noted that the rear doors were locked. The locks did not open even after the car was lifted. This fact was recorded as requiring further examination. During the examination of the seats, several dark stains were found. They were preserved for DNA analysis. The initial report states, "The origin of the stains is unknown. They may be of biological origin. The samples taken have been sent to the laboratory." On the evening of September 12th, the head of the investigation team officially stated, "The items found in the vehicle and the location of the items rule out the possibility of an accidental accident. The car probably ended up in the water due to circumstances related to illegal activities." Based on these conclusions, the case was reclassified. A new line appeared in the documents. Status: criminal proceedings for the intentional killing of 3 people. The news immediately hit the press. Local publications ran headlines such as "Harrison Family, Accident Ruled Out," and "Police Open Criminal Case After Finding Ropes in Car." The family's relatives received official notification that the case was no longer being treated as a disappearance or accident, but as a murder. For investigators, this meant moving to another level. Whereas previously they had only had guesses and rumors, now they had concrete evidence that required detailed examination. Every rope, every trace in the car could be the key to solving what had happened to Daniel, Alice, and Ryan. The official report, dated September 13th, concluded with the statement, "Given the nature of the items found, there is every reason to believe that the Harrisons were victims of a crime. The investigation is ongoing." After the Harrisons' car was seized in September 2023, all physical evidence was transferred to the California Department of Justice's Forensic Laboratory in Sacramento. The experts' task was to preserve and analyze every object that could shed light on the events of August 2015. The work took several weeks and was accompanied by regular reports. Ropes. Particular attention was paid to 2 pieces of synthetic rope found on the back seat of the car. First, they were visually inspected. The knots were tied tightly, one of them forming a loop. The experts noted that the nature of the knot did not correspond to typical tourist use. The knots were more reminiscent of those used to restrain movement. To search for traces, they used methods involving the application of cyanoacrylate vapors, as well as laser scanning under ultraviolet light. Microtraces of epithelium and partial latent fingerprints were found on the surface of the ropes. The technical report states, "The samples obtained do not allow a complete fingerprint to be formed, but they contain enough individual characteristics to conduct a comparative analysis with existing databases." Biological traces. In addition to the prints, dark stains were found on the front seats of the car. The laboratory confirmed that it was blood. DNA analysis showed that the samples belonged to a man identified as Daniel Garrison. This result was crucial. It meant that he had sustained his injuries before the car submerged in the water. Match in the database. Partial prints from the rope were entered into an automated fingerprint identification system. A few days later, the system returned a match. The profile matched that of Joseph Collins, 45, a resident of Reno, Nevada. Collins had a criminal record for theft and illegal possession of weapons, was serving a suspended sentence, and was in the criminal evidence database. Old contacts investigators turned to archival materials. It turned out that in 2013 to 2014, Daniel Harrison worked in a construction cooperative, where he collaborated with Collins for some time. Internal documents recorded a conflict between them over financial disagreements. Daniel's relatives confirmed that after that, his relationship with Collins ended, but he tried to contact him by phone several times. Digital traces. Digital data added weight to the suspicions. Investigators requested records from mobile operators and banks for August 2015. It was established that on August 2nd, the day the family disappeared, Joseph Collins's bank card was used at a gas station near South Lake Tahoe. On the same day, his cell phone connected to towers in the lake area. This coincided with the messages that Daniel and Alice sent to their relatives before setting off on their trip. Official filing of suspicion, based on the data obtained, on October 19, 2023, the investigation team filed Collins as a suspect. The report states, microtraces on ropes belonging to non-members of the Harrison family have been identified as belonging to a person named Joseph Collins. Digital data confirms his presence in the South Lake Tahoe area on the day of the disappearance. In addition, a previous conflict with Daniel Harrison was established. Conclusion. For the first time in 8 years, the investigation had not only hypotheses, but a specific name. Investigators were able to link physical evidence with digital and archival materials. For relatives, this was confirmation that the case was moving forward. For the police, it was a reason to resume full criminal proceedings with a specific suspect. On October 20, 2023, the El Dorado County Sheriff's Department officially announced the arrest of Joseph Collins, 45, a resident of Reno, Nevada. The arrest took place at 6:15 a.m. local time at his rented house on the outskirts of the city. The operation was conducted by local police officers with the support of the investigative team handling the Harrisons' case. The report states, the suspect was taken into custody without resistance. During the search, electronic media and personal belongings were seized. No additional evidence directly related to the 2015 disappearance was found. Collins was taken to a pretrial detention center in Sacramento. Interrogation. The first interrogation took place on the same day at 10:30 a.m. When asked about his presence at Lake Tahoe on August 2, 2015, he replied, "I may have stopped by, but I don't remember. It's been many years." When asked about the recorded transaction on his bank card at a gas station, he said, "It could have been any trip." When investigators presented the results of the forensic examination of the ropes, Collins refused to testify further, invoking his right to an attorney. The protocol states, the detainee stopped giving explanations after the results of the examination were presented. Evidence investigators prepared a comprehensive report, which formed the basis of the indictment. The main points: microtraces of epithelium and partial latent fingerprints on the ropes removed from the car were identified as belonging to Joseph Collins. DNA analysis confirmed the presence of Daniel Harrison's blood in the car. A bank transaction involving Collins's card on August 2, 2015, was recorded at a gas station near South Lake Tahoe. Mobile phone records show that his phone was in the lake area on the same day. Archival records confirm that there was a financial dispute between Collins and Daniel Harris in 2014. The investigation's version of events. The official reconstruction was as follows. On the day of the family's disappearance, Joseph Collins met with the Harrisons in the Echo Lakes area. The motive was long-standing animosity and financial disagreements. Investigators reconstructed the subsequent events based on circumstantial evidence: violence against the family, the use of ropes, and bodily harm to Daniel. The car was then driven to one of the underwater depressions of Lake Tahoe in order to hide the traces of the crime. The sheriff's report states, the nature of the physical evidence found makes the accidental accident theory impossible. Collins's actions were deliberate and violent. Legal status. On October 25, 2023, the California District Attorney's Office formally charged Joseph Collins with 3 counts of first-degree murder. The court hearing was scheduled for March 2024. The prosecutor's report emphasized the evidence gathered, physical, digital, and testimony about the prior conflict, is sufficient to bring charges. Given the nature of the crime, the prosecution will seek the maximum penalty. Family. In November 2023, the Harrisons' relatives were officially handed over the remains, identified as belonging to Daniel, Alice, and Ryan. The burial took place in Sacramento in the presence of close relatives. A family representative said only the following at a brief briefing: "We have received answers, but that does not compensate for the loss." Conclusion. At the end of the year, the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office issued its final report. It stated, "The Harrison case is closed. The person responsible has been identified. The charge is first-degree murder. The case has been referred to the court." Thus, a story that had remained a mystery for 8 years and spawned dozens of theories came to an official end. The car that had been lying at the bottom of the lake became a key witness. Ropes found in the passenger compartment led investigators to a person from Daniel's past, and digital traces confirmed her presence on the day of the disappearance. The final decision in the case was still to be made by the court, but for investigators and relatives, the term "cold case" no longer existed. All official documents contained one definition: the murder of the Harrison family. Investigation completed. Suspect identified.